As you read Wuthering Heights, I want you to pay careful attention to what Bronte has included in the text and what she has omitted from the text. Look for things that are ambiguous, things that make you question. Don't skim the text. Engage in close reading. In fact, that's the reason why I have broken down our readings into small segments so that you will pay careful attention to what is in the text. First off, beginnings are important. This text is actually going to start near the end of all the action we're going to encounter. It starts in 1801. The novel will actually end in 1802. But a great deal of what's going to happen will have happened 20 years before. We will see it in flashback, and in fact, we will not even get to that point until we're a few chapters into this book. So, right away, most of what has happened has already occurred, and our narrator, Lockwood, is coming to the story. He is renting a house, Thrushcross Grange, and he has come to see his landlord, who is actually at Wuthering Heights. So what impressions are you getting? What are the contrasts between Lockwood's impressions of what he sees and the language he actually uses to describe them? Lockwood's from London. This is the wilds of Yorkshire. Think of the city slicker coming to the countryside. What might be the disconnect between what he's used to and what he's seeing here? Lockwood uses the word misanthropist. He thinks that Heathcliff is a misanthrope, and in fact even sort of thinks of himself as a misanthrope. Is that true? Perhaps not. Take a look. How does he describe Heathcliff? Is he interested in Heathcliff? If so, why? What contrast does he himself see within Heathcliff, both in his appearance and in his dress and his manner? What about the other inhabitants of Wuthering Heights? What does he think when he sees them? Does he understand the relationships between each other? He visits not once but twice. Does he have any trouble entering in on any of the visits? How does he describe these? We have a lot of doors and windows that are going to show up in this story. Are they locked or open? What does that signify? What is Lockwood himself like? He's going to be the one narrating the story, but what kind of person is he? What judgments does he make? What mistakes might he be making? When he first enters into Wuthering Heights, he starts describing it. And in fact, it was perhaps modeled on its location on Top Withens near Haythorne in England, but also Sunderland Hall in Halifax is sort of the inspiration for the construction. And the construction of this manor in the wilderness is Gothic. Gothic is a medieval design. We know that it carved over the doorway is the year 1500. This was built around 1500. And we have sort of magical figures, griffins. These griffins are kind of an interesting thing that he focuses on. He also focuses on shameless boys. But griffins are legendary creatures, and they have the bodies of lions and the heads and wings of eagles. They're known to guard treasure and priceless possessions, which makes sense if they're on a portal into a house. But they're also known to have mated for life, although they're magical and mythical figures, not real. But if their partner died, the griffin that was left would never mate with anyone else, would live out the rest of its life alone. Already we might be getting clues as we walk into this house where this man Heathcliff lives. And in fact, Lockwood talks about the house as if it was a pentramulum, which is an innermost shrine or recess. It's a very elevated and highfalutin word for going into a country manor. Why does he use it? What does it say about Lockwood? What does it say about what Bronte wants to suggest about Wuthering Heights as a house? We have names. Heathcliff is the name of one of our characters. Lockwood is the name of our narrator, or at least our first narrator. We will meet someone else who will tell Lockwood the story of Wuthering Heights. And Lockwood compares himself with Heathcliff. What comparisons would you make between the two of them? Are they similar in any way? Are they different? Does Lockwood think that they're similar? Does he correct himself? If so, why? and think about what their names might actually suggest. Heathcliff, a heath, a cliff, nature. What kind of images of nature are they bringing up? There's a reason I've put these pictures here. And Lockwood, is that considered someone who's open-minded and flexible? Or do we have any other thoughts about what Lockwood might be as a thinker and someone who understands the world around him? Look for references to the devil, to hell, and inversions of heaven and hell. Is hell sometimes a heaven for those who can be together in it? Is heaven sometimes a trap? What is Bronte saying about light and dark and hell and heaven? What truly is a heavenly place? There are illusions. We know from Foster, illusions show up everywhere. We see Lockwood make an illusion that the reason he's in Yorkshire right now is because of an incident that happens. He makes an allusion in his own speech, never told my love. This is actually an allusion to Twelfth Night. And it's an interesting play to be alluding to because the person who says she never told her love, which is a young woman dressed up as a man who is actually telling the person who is the object of her affection about her own affection, pretending it's a sister who died. So we get this sort of ambiguity of gender being associated with never told my love. Is that significant? Is it significant for Lockwood? What do we think? Later on, when Lockwood encounters the dogs that attack him, and we'll talk a little bit about the dogs in class as we go through the novel, he thinks of them as attacking as he's going to fight back as if, he's possessed by King Lear. King Lear, again, is a man who is a king and in Shakespeare's play, King Lear, and he basically tries to test his daughter to find out who loves him the most. The one who is most worthy won't play this game, and he becomes enraged and throws her out. He throws away the best. And it's, again, about fathers and daughters. Do fathers and daughters play out in this novel? We need to be on the lookout for it. We also have the biblical allusion of possessed swine, referring to the idea that, again, this sort of demonic situation. Possessed swine is actually a reference to Jesus casting out demons from two men and putting them into a herd of pigs. And again, a lot of references to devils. Why is that significant? We have dogs. In fact, our first act of violence, real violence in this novel, and there will be many more, is a pack of dogs in Wuthering Heights attacking Lockwood. Now, please look carefully and see if Lockwood did anything. We have a lot of dogs that show up within this novel. For one reason, Emily Bronte really liked dogs. In fact, right now, I agree with her. I have a dog right in my room right now who is sleeping, and you might even hear his little snoring in the background. What do we think of when we think about dogs? Protection, attacking, rabid, sweet, a lap dog. So what associations do we have with them? What mood do they add when they are present in the novel? Are we seeing any other animals, any other sort of connections that are being made? We learn about Cathy, Mrs. Heathcliff, and Hareton within this chapter. What do we learn about them? How does Lockwood describe them and characterize them? So consider basically this passage in chapter 2 as you read. This is the passage in which we have Lockwood asking if Hareton is Heathcliff's son. And assuming that Cathy is either married to Heathcliff or married to Hareton. Is she married to either one of them? What is Hareton's reaction to this sort of response by Heathcliff to Lockwood's question? Is he upset in any way? If so, why? What would that suggest? So again, these are things that I want you to be thinking about as you go through the chapter 1 and 2, and think about what questions, what mystery still remains. We have a lot of things that are hidden from us. We have locked doors, locked windows. Again, how does Lockwood talk about the people who inhabit Wuthering Heights? Now, you will encounter in the entire novel a character named Joseph. Quite often you will have great difficulty understanding him because he has been given a Yorkshire accent or speech pattern by Emily Bronte as close as she could figure out. He's very difficult. Usually he's suggesting that everyone is damned. It's easy to dismiss him as someone who is just talking about everyone being sent to the devil, but there are some poignant things about Joseph that we might want to consider as we go through, especially when we get to the later part of the novel. And one thing to keep in mind is Joseph, like Nellie, is going to be one of the few constants through the entire novel. So while we are not getting his perspective, we are getting things that he says, which we might want to think about why they're significant. I hope that you find Wuthering Heights interesting and look forward to the following chapters as we go through as well.